Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Larry Bird, Patrick Ewing, these are all players that come to mind when you think of basketball legends. But how did these guys perform in their first ever NBA games? Let's start today with Michael Jordan, because he's thought of by many as the best player to ever touch a basketball. He went on one of the greatest championship runs of all time, and we will likely never see a player have the level of postseason success that he did again. He spent 15 years in the league playing for the Chicago Bulls and the Washington Wizards. Before he won 6 NBA titles, made 14 All-Star games, 11 All-NBA teams, 9 All-Defensive teams, 5 MVPs, 6 Finals MVPs, 1 Defensive Player of the Year award, 10 scoring titles, and 3 steals titles, Jordan was the 3rd overall pick of the 1984 NBA draft by the Chicago Bulls. Despite the greatness that Jordan would achieve later on in his career, he would begin his time in the NBA with a slow start in his debut. In the contest that took place on October 26, 1984 between the Bulls and, ironically, the Washington Bullets, Jordan would finish the game scoring 16 points, dishing out 7 assists, and pulling in 6 rebounds while making only 5 of his 16 shots from the field. Although this was not the most efficient or jaw-dropping performance from who many consider to be the GOAT, the Bulls would still win the game by a final score of 109-93. Jordan would get things back on track throughout the course of the season and would end up winning the Rookie of the Year award, and when it was all said and done, retire as one of the most decorated players in NBA history. Up next is probably the only other argument for the greatest of all time. If somebody doesn't have Jordan as their GOAT, they're likely believing that the best player of all time is LeBron James. James has spent 20 years in the league and is heading into his 21st year in the 2023-24 season. Throughout his lengthy time in the league, he's played for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Miami Heat, and the Los Angeles Lakers. Coming into the league, James was arguably the most hyped-up prospect of all time. His high school games were being broadcasted on national television, and many believe that if he didn't finish his career as one of the all-time greats, he would have been thought of as a bust. Despite having arguably the highest bar possible set for him compared to any other player that played in the NBA, James has gone on to crush those expectations that were set for him. Thus far, he's made 19 All-Star appearances, 6 All-Defensive Team appearances, 4 MVPs, 4 NBA titles, 4 Finals MVPs, 19 appearances on the All-NBA team, led the league in scoring once, and led the NBA in assists once, along with many other achievements. After being the 1st overall pick of the 2003 NBA draft by the Cleveland Cavaliers, James would begin his career on October 29, 2003, against the Sacramento Kings. He would finish the contest with an impressive 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists. Despite this very strong performance, especially taking into account that James was only 18 years old, the Cavs would still lose the game by a final score of 106-92. After the game, James was quoted as saying, "I was able to make a lot of moves I made in high school. I just had to bring a lot more power. They're a lot stronger in the NBA. Most of the moves I used in high school, I used out there." Although James and the Cavs would not be able to secure a win in his debut, he would go on to have one of the greatest and most decorated careers in NBA history and would end up ending the championship drought for the city of Cleveland. Up next was personally one of my favorite players to watch in NBA history. I don't know if they're considered a legend, but I still wanted to throw them on this list. Derrick Rose is set to enter his 15th year in the NBA in the 2023-24 season. Throughout his career, he played for the Chicago Bulls, New York Knicks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Minnesota Timberwolves, Detroit Pistons, and is set to play for the Memphis Grizzlies this season. Rose entered the league as the 1st overall pick in the 2008 NBA draft for the Chicago Bulls. His debut to the league would take place on October 28, 2008, in a game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Rose would record 11 points, 9 assists, 3 steals, and 4 rebounds in a very strong showing. Chicago would win the game by a final score of 108-95. After the game, Rose was quoted as saying, "It's way more intense. I'm playing in an NBA game in my hometown. I don't know if it can get any better." It can be argued that Rose is still the most talented player to ever suit up for the Bulls since Michael Jordan. He would have one of the best starts to a career that we would ever see. He would quickly become a hero in Chicago and was named as the youngest MVP in the history of the NBA. Along with his MVP win, Rose would also make 3 All-Star Game appearances, 1 All-NBA appearance, and won the 2008 to 2009 Rookie of the Year award. Had it not been for those injuries cutting his elite prime short, Rose could have ended up going down as one of the best point guards to ever play the game of basketball, rather than arguably being the biggest what-if in NBA history. What if I told you that despite going on to be one of the greatest big men in the history of the league, our next player would come off the bench in his NBA debut? Although he's now best known as being one of the hosts on Inside the NBA, during his playing days, Charles Barkley was one of the top big men of his generation and one of the most talented rebounders of all time. Despite being only 6'6" at the power forward position during an era that teams frequently sent out twin tower lineups, Barkley would still dominate on the boards and earn the nickname the Round Mound of Rebound. He was the 5th overall pick of the 1984 NBA draft by the Philadelphia 76ers. Barkley had absolutely no interest in being drafted by the team and recently went into the lengths he took to avoid being a 76er. Along with this, he went into what kind of shape he was in heading into his NBA debut. In an appearance on the New Heights podcast hosted by Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce and Philadelphia Eagles center Jason Kelce, Barkley was quoted as saying, "I was about 300 pounds in college. The Sixers had brought me in for a visit and the owner says, 'Hey, everybody's concerned about your weight.' I think I had like 6 weeks before the draft and he says, 'I want you to stop back here the day before the draft. We want you to weigh 285. I get down to about 285 and then my agent says to me, they have a hard cap in the NBA. So if you get drafted by the Sixers, you're going to have to play your first year for $75,000. Shit, I didn't leave college for $75,000. I could have gotten that much in college. So we went on an eating binge. I stop in Philly, I weighed 298 pounds. I leave and I'm thinking, whew, we dodged a bullet. If you go back and look at the tape, there's this look on my face when they said, with the 5th overall pick in the draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Charles Barkley out of Auburn. I got this look on my face like, what the F? Heading into his rookie season, not happy with his team and extremely out of shape, Barkley would begin the season as a bench player. Despite coming off the bench in his debut, he would still have a rather strong showing, finishing the game with 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists while shooting 50% from the field. Although Barkley would get off on the wrong foot with the 76ers, things would quickly turn around and he would become one of the top big men in the league. He finished his career in the NBA after 16 seasons in the league. During that time, he played for the 76ers, Phoenix Suns, and Houston Rockets. He would make 11 appearances in the All-Star Game, 11 appearances on the All-NBA team, led the league in rebounds once, and took home 1 MVP award. Up next is another first-ballot Hall of Famer that began his illustrious career coming off the bench. After being the 16th overall pick in the 1984 NBA draft by the Utah Jazz, John Stockton would begin his NBA career as a bench player. He would only start in 2 games in his rookie season and had to earn his spot on the team. He made his NBA debut on October 26, 1984 in a game between the Jazz and the Seattle Supersonics. Stockton would finish the contest recording 4 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals in only 17 minutes. Despite Stockton doing a solid job in the minutes that he was given in his debut, the Jazz would still fall short and lose by a final score of 102-94. Although things did not go his way in his debut to the league, Stockton would still go on to have an incredible career and would retire as arguably the most talented pure point guard of all time. He played with the Utah Jazz throughout his entire 19-year career, and in that time he would make 10 appearances in the All-Star Game, 11 appearances on the All-NBA team, 5 appearances on the All-Defensive team, led the league in steals twice, and led the league in assists 9 times. The next legend on our list would show flashes of the generational guard that he would end up becoming in his debut in the NBA. Stephen Curry has gone on to revolutionize the NBA and completely change the way that the sport of basketball is played. He began his career as the 7th overall pick in the 2009 NBA draft by the Golden State Warriors. Curry would start the season as the starting point guard of the team, and in his debut, he would record a very solid 14 points, 7 assists, 4 steals, and 2 rebounds, while shooting a very efficient 7 for 12 from the field. Interestingly, despite going on to be widely regarded as the best three-point shooter of all time and bringing on the three-point revolution, Curry would only shoot one three-pointer in his debut, and he would miss the shot. Curry is heading into his 15th season in the NBA, playing all of them with the Warriors. Thus far, he's made 9 All-Star games, 9 All-NBA appearances, while winning 4 NBA titles, 1 Finals MVP, 2 MVP awards, and leading the league in scoring twice and steals once. As Curry begins to reach the golden years of his career, he has quickly begun ascending the mighty list of all-time point guards. While most still have Magic Johnson ranked in front of him, the gap becomes more and more narrow each season, and some are beginning to make the argument for Curry to be the best point guard to ever touch an NBA court. Up next is the debut of one of the best big men of his generation. Patrick Ewing is a player that is frequently overlooked when talking about NBA legends. This mostly comes as a result of him and the New York Knicks failing to see much postseason success due to them sharing a conference with Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Ewing would enter the league as the first overall pick in the 1985 draft by the New York Knicks. He would make his debut on October 26, 1985 in a game between the Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers. Ewing would begin his NBA career on the wrong foot and would have a very poor showing in his debut. He would finish the game with 18 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. While this may not sound like a terrible stat line, especially in a player's debut, Ewing would shoot 38.1% from the field and 50% from the free throw line in this game. This mainly came as a result of the 76ers having elite big men in their rotation at the time that consisted of Moses Malone, Charles Barkley, and Bob McAdoo. Although he had a very forgettable debut, Ewing would not let this slow start get to him and would end up having a Hall of Fame caliber career. In his 17 years in the league, Ewing would suit up for the Knicks, Seattle Supersonics, and Orlando Magic. He would retire making 11 appearances in the All-Star Game, 7 appearances on the All-NBA team, a recipient of the 1985-86 Rookie of the Year award, and a 3-time member of the NBA All-Defensive Team. Up next is an NBA legend that potentially had the greatest debut on the entire list. Before Steph Curry revolutionized the league, Magic Johnson was the consensus pick as the greatest point guard to ever play in the NBA. He came into the league more than ready to play at the professional level, and he proved that in his NBA debut. Johnson's debut would take place on October 12, 1979, against the San Diego Clippers. He would have an incredible all-around game, finishing the contest with 26 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 4 blocks, while shooting a very solid 47.6% from the field. Lakers would narrowly win this game by a final score of 103-102. One of the most notable moments from the game came after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hit the game-winning shot. Johnson would rush to arguably the most talented big man of all time and embrace him with a bear hug. Abdul-Jabbar would then tell Johnson to calm down as there were still 81 games left in the season. Johnson would seemingly take this to heart and would come up huge for the Lakers in their finals run. With Kareem injured in Game 6 of the series, Johnson, who mainly served as the team's starting point guard, would suit up at the center position. Despite going against an elite big man rotation that the Philadelphia 76ers featured, Johnson would put up an all-time performance in the closeout game, recording 42 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, and 1 block, while shooting 60.9% from the field. Along with the title, Finals MVP, he would also retire with 12 All-Star appearances, 3 MVP awards, 10 appearances on the All-NBA team, 4 additional titles, 2 additional Finals MVPs, 4 assist titles, and 2 steals titles. It can be argued that no player came into the league as prepared to make the transition into the professional level as Johnson, but even more impressive is that he continued to develop his game and take strides in being arguably the most talented player to ever play the point guard position. What if I told you the final debut on our list from an NBA legend should have come 1 year earlier, but he made one of the most historic franchises in history and the league as a whole wait an entire year? Larry Bird is one of the few players from his era that could have had an even better career if he played today. This is no knock on Bird's career, as he retired as one of the top 2 players of his era. but his elite three-point shooting skill set would make him a force to be reckoned with in today's league. Bird was drafted as the 6th overall pick in the 1978 NBA draft. Despite this, he would not make his league debut until the 1979-80 season. This came as a result of him returning to play his senior season at Indiana State even after being drafted. One of the main reasons that he made the decision came as a result of a promise that he made to his mother. An excerpt from Wish It Lasted Forever, Life with the Larry Bird Celtics is quoted as saying, "He'd promised his mom that he'd get his degree, and he had to complete student teaching obligations to fulfill graduation requirements. But after Bird got his degree and it was finally time for him to make his much anticipated debut into the league, he was more than ready to play at the professional level. He finished the game with 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists, while shooting 50% from the field." Interestingly, Bird taking the floor for the first time would not be the only historic thing about his debut. His Celtics teammate Chris Ford made the first three-point shot in NBA history. Bird would continue to dominate the league through his rookie season and the remainder of his career. After 13 seasons with the Celtics, Bird would retire with 12 All-Star appearances, 10 All-NBA appearances, 3 All-Defensive Team appearances, won the 1979 Rookie of the Year award, 3 MVP awards, 3 NBA titles, and 2 Finals MVP awards. For a long stretch before players like LeBron would enter the league, Bird was widely regarded as the most talented small forward to ever play the game. Now, I know I didn't cover every NBA legend in this video, so I want you guys to comment down below who you want to see in episode 2 if I end up making it. Also, drop a thumbs up on this video and subscribe to the channel. I will catch you in the next one, and I appreciate you guys watching.